Orleans Saints coaching staff is filling out as Kellen Moore has been very busy, specifically adding to the offensive side of the football. So for today's video, we're going to show you who all has been hired. We're going to go through the latest hires because multiple moves have been made today. And on top of that, I'm going to give you who should be the OC, who should be the defensive coordinator. We're going to have an honest conversation here throughout today's video. But let's get you guys informed on the coaches who have been hired. Most recently, obviously, Kellen Moore is the head coach, but Scott Tolzien, the former quarterback, he is now the QB coach, replacing Andrew Janocko. Joel Thomas, he returns as the running backs coach. Keith Williams, he is staying, which is a really, really good move. A lot of the wide receivers, a lot of players really like working with Keith Williams. Chase Haslett, son of Jim Haslett, former Saints head coach. He is the tight ends coach. And then Brendan Nugent, he obviously has been hired, you see it on your screen, as the offensive line coach. But let's talk about Joel Thomas real quick, because this is a little bit of a homecoming. He spent last season with the Giants. However, he is now coming back to the New Orleans Saints. I had a little bit of a brain fart. He's coming back to the New Orleans Saints, and as you can see, pointed out by Tom Pelissero, very highly regarded, very highly respected across the National Football League. And honestly, I actually really like this note too. He has a little bit of an extra look at the players from the Senior Bowl, and we all know the New Orleans Saints love drafting Senior Bowl players. So he was the offensive coordinator at the Reese's Senior Bowl just a handful of weeks ago. Now, Nick Underhill also adding, we added another coach, TJ Pagnetti. He was the run game specialist and assistant offensive line coach for the Philadelphia Eagles last season. I asked our Eagles now host Chase Sr. just for a little bit of information on him, and he said, I don't know, but you hired him. So there you go. We hired another Eagles guy. I mean, they just won a Super Bowl. Feels like it's a good pull or a good pool to pull from. But then Ian Rappaport, he added some context, and he was the one who announced the Scott Tolzien news. He was a quarterback. He had a little bit of a history playing. In 2011, he was on the practice squad with the Chargers, and then he was with the Niners from 2011 to 2012. He was with the Packers from 13 to 15. He was on the Colts from 2016 to 2017. And then he was on the Birmingham Iron practice squad, which was a part of the USFL just a handful of years ago, that spring league that lasted all of 6 weeks. Then as a coach, he was an analyst for the Wisconsin Badgers. He was a coaching assistant for the Cowboys from 2020 to 2022, a QB coach from 23 to 24 in Dallas. And then obviously now he's the quarterback's coach for the New Orleans Saints. He has this ties to Kellen Moore from their time in Dallas, but there is no question about it. Still a lot of spots to fill on the coaching staff, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but there's still a handful of spots offensively as well. And we all know Kellen Moore, during his introductory press conference, made it very, very clear the Saints are not going to rush this process. I understand the combine is in about a week. I understand that the draft is, just a little bit further out in the sights, but I don't think the Saints need to have their entire coaching staff filled out right this moment. We're going to see more names pile in, a lot quicker here, but I like that the Saints aren't rushing this. Kellen Moore, like I said, he mentioned in his press conference that they don't want to rush this and that they don't plan on rushing this because they want to go about things the right way. And, if you're going about things the right way, I think that's an excellent thing to build. And I really, really like what Kellen Moore is building. He's pulling from a lot of his connections and a lot of his co-workers or co-coaches from previous jobs, but then he's also pulling from some young players that were at one point a player and now are early into their coaching careers. I really like this young, innovative staff that Kellen Moore's building, and we haven't even really started the defensive side of the football. So, if you add some of that, I think that just makes things so much better. Now, I want you to get down in the comments section. Name a coach that the New Orleans Saints should hire, because there's a name out there that a lot of people are going to possibly comment. And I'm going to tell you my take on that person in just a second, but I want you to get down in the comments and share your thoughts. I'm just going to say it, black and white. I'm trying not to have any confusion here. Keep Jon Gruden away from the New Orleans Saints organization. I don't care that all other things have been settled. I don't care what his history was. I don't care what his resume is. I don't care how many views he gets on YouTube. I don't care how much Barstool's paying him. Keep him away. I don't care that he likes the city of New Orleans. To be totally honest, I don't give a shit that the best year in Derek Carr's tenure was under Jon Gruden. I could care less. You have so much positive momentum going on. I was literally talking to Ross Jackson over the weekend. Him and I were texting about this. I said, Ross, what's going on? I see Gruden's back in New Orleans. It was for a powerlifting competition for his son. That being said, a lot of Saints fans were like, oh my God, QB coach, offensive assistant, OC, what's going to happen here? Keep him away. Don't let him be a part of this team. You have so much positive momentum going on. Do not throw a wrench in that by hiring Jon Gruden. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about the offensive coordinator because that is a position that is still yet to be hired. And on top of that, we're also going to go defensive coordinator because, in my opinion, that's actually the most important hire for Kellen Moore this offseason. But really quick, I got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Public Rec. Y'all see this shirt? It's so nice. It's so soft. It looks good, and it feels even better. But guys, let's be real for a minute. Nobody's got time for stiff, uncomfortable clothes anymore. You know what I mean? It's February. It's cold outside. I mean, my brother's up at college at Oklahoma State in Stillwater. It feels like negative 10 degrees, but hey, I got him some Public Rec gear for Christmas, and he's feeling comfortable. He's feeling warm. I'll tell you what, he's the best dressed guy in all of Oklahoma. So for a limited time, our listeners can get 20% off your entire order with code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. That's 20% off when you use promo code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. Their pants are designed to be as comfortable as your favorite sweats, but way more stylish. We're talking super soft fabric, no stiff seams, and enough stretch to keep whatever your date throws at you all in line. So Public Rec, they have so many great style options from clothes to shirts to pants to everything in between. I have been revamping my wardrobe with Public Rec, and I cannot emphasize enough that you need to revamp your wardrobe with Public Rec. Little secret time too. I mean, I was at the Super Bowl. Y'all know that. I brought this shirt out to Bourbon Street. Maddie knows this story. I already told her. I wore the shirt out. Let's just say this. No problem throwing out beads when I was rocking the Public Rec. So go get yourself started and go get yourself geared up. Link is in the comments and description of this video, So February, stop settling for the same old stuff. Step up your comfort game with Public Rec. It's about time you treat yourself. For a limited time, our listeners, like I mentioned, get 20% off your entire order with code CHAT20 at publicrec.com. All that information is in the comments and description of this video. Thank you to Public Rec for sponsoring today's video, and thank you to Public Rec for having the best clothes available. Alrighty, so in case you guys didn't know, for both the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator positions, the Saints have satisfied the Rooney Rule, meaning they can now hire at any point in time an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. So to start things off first, let's go through the offensive side of the football. I mean, that staff has been pretty much filled out. Feels like there's a very obvious option here for who should be the next offensive coordinator, but a handful of names have been linked and have been, at least interviewed. Doug Nussmeier and Jemal Singleton, those two names have interviewed. Kirby Moore, he's the brother of Kellen Moore. He's the offensive coordinator and the play caller for the Mizzou Tigers. I don't expect him to leave anytime. This really just kind of came up because during a press conference where Kellen Moore was introduced as the head coach, he spoke highly about his brother, said he would love to work alongside him. I don't think that's going to happen. But then Kevin Koger, the tight ends coach for the Atlanta Falcons, he actually declined to the interview request. Jemal Singleton, he was the running backs coach in Philadelphia, and then Doug Nussmeier, he was the Eagles quarterbacks coach this past year, and he's followed him around to multiple different stops. So my prediction, I think that Doug Nussmeier will return to the New Orleans Saints as the offensive coordinator. It just makes way too much sense. He has ties to Louisiana, and on top of that, his son is literally playing at LSU, so I'm sure that would be another big reason for him to want to come to Louisiana. So I think Doug Nussmeier, all signs, all roads, all fingers are pointing to him being the offensive coordinator. Nick Underhill even saying, feels like it's pretty much a shoo-in, nothing official, but should happen relatively soon. Let's talk defensive side of the football, because this is where things can actually get really, really interesting. I think that this is a very big hire, and I think that if you do make a hire here that, is one of these candidates we're going to talk about, there's going to be big changes coming to the defense, and not just the personnel, but schematically as well. And, I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of really good things that can come with a big change in New Orleans defensively. And so if you guys want to find out what changes are coming to the Saints defense, hit the sub button. I'm going to put out a video either later today or first thing tomorrow morning laying out what changes to expect if one of the three names we're about to discuss here does get hired. So if you want to know, you want to get a head start and you want to know a little bit more than your friends and understand your team in better depth, I highly encourage you to subscribe to Saints Now for free. Now, defensive coordinator candidates, a little bit of a more, it's a little bit of a smaller pool here. It just feels like it's Brandon Staley. He's the 49ers assistant head coach this past year. He served as the head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers when Kellen Moore left Dallas and was his offensive coordinator. So kind of funny. You get to see them, flip roles right there a little bit. It's kind of hilarious. Christian Parker, he was the defensive backs coach for the Philadelphia Eagles this past year. They had a great defensive back group, so probably not a bad option there. And then Durante Jones, he was also the Vikings defensive backs coach. He is also interviewed for the position. One thing to note about Brandon Staley, when he was the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams back in 2020, they were the number one defense. Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, they made him a lot of money and gave him a lot of opportunity here. So if they can make things work and Brandon Staley is the guy, then I think that that's a really good hire. But no matter who it is, this is a very, very important hire for Kellen Moore because he's the offensive guy. So offensive side of the ball is taken care of. It's a defense now that we have to worry about, which for years it's been flipped. The defense has been great. Under Dennis Allen, we're set. We're like defense is the bread and butter here. The offense is just where things kind of struggle. So now things are a little bit flip-flopped here. I think that at the end of the day, Kellen Moore has to nail this defensive coordinator hire because if you have a good defensive coordinator hire, it means he's going to hire good DB coaches and good linebacker coaches and good defensive line coaches and good defensive assistant. Like, you have to nail the top hire in order to get the other hires correct. And I think that Brandon Staley is an excellent option, which is why my prediction is that Brandon Staley will be the defensive coordinator. And look, I know that there is a sour taste for a lot of people about Brandon Staley because how bad things were when he was the head coach for the Chargers. Straight up, that was never going to succeed. That was never going to be a successful situation for him. That being said, I do like him as a defensive coordinator. And the last time we saw him have that role, what happened? He got some hardware. Feels like it might not be a bad little gig. I'm just saying. I know that was a few years ago, and I know that you had Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey in a historically good defense for the Rams at that point. But it just feels like this makes too much sense. And I think that he still is a guy who has a lot to prove. And I think the Saints can be beneficiaries of that. So what do you think is the biggest need on the Saints defense? Is it the defensive coordinator? Or is it a player like a linebacker, a safety, an edge rusher? I want you guys to let me know. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.